Okay, I guess we can go back to where you were talking, Ted.
I think Warren, you were
Yeah.
Oh, Warren. I'm sorry,
mentioning.
Warren.
It's all good. Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked into it much more. I was listening to like the Thursday I catch up thing, and they released it like in the middle of the show, so they went over benchmarks really quick, and that's it. But the notable thing is that at least to me, is that in the playground they have the like how you there's that option on Gemini to like stream your whole screen to the thing and have it just sort of look over your shoulder or whatever. Um, the It's an open source model that can do that. That has like quite solid video understanding for like large amounts of footage. So I imagine it will be a pretty interesting paper to read, but I haven't read it yet. So
Who's that?
Okay.
Where's Reka from?
I think the lab is just called Reka Labs, honestly.
Oh, okay. I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah, I've used their last one was Reka 3 Flash. It's pretty good at like narrative stuff. It's like like lightweight sort of Gemini Flash. It's a little more that sounds a little less Gemini-y. It's kind of my vibe check of it.
And what's this stream your desktop to it concept? I hadn't heard of that one
Oh
before.
yeah, oh yeah. So Gemini does it. Uh they call it I think they call it like Gemini real time or something. They made a big deal out of it on and oh no. Um at Google Next or whatever.
Hmm.
But yeah, the long and short of it is you can just stream your screen to the assistant and have it like look over your shoulder and help you out, or like you can ask it questions about your video or your programming problem or whatever.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's very
And
cool. If you haven't tried it, definitely go give it a shot.
how is that
I,
spelled, Warren? I tried to do it
Uh,
a couple of
REKA is what you're looking for, and it's
REKA. Okay.
yeah, 3.1 is the one that came out this morning.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Hmm.
so this is kind of a parallel question to the streaming over your shoulder or looking over your shoulder. Um, have have you any has anybody used Claude Code? Has anybody been using that at all?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm like just totally behind the times or whatever, but I just started playing with that last week and pretty amazed by the productivity boost you get out of that.
Yeah, it's really good.
And I don't know, are there other agentic, what would you call it, kind of an agentic code assist?
Yeah,
Are there other ones of note?
that category I would call like terminal agents probably. There's Claude Code, and then OpenAI has Codex, which also has a web GUI, and then Google has Jules for their web GUI and Gemini CLI for their terminal one. Gemini CLI is open source, which is kind of nice. And then there's
Is
also
that,
hmm.
and is that, so CLI, is it agentic like that, that it'll run out and do all?
Well, yeah, so the Claude Code is kind of the winner right now, mostly just because Anthropic is like tunnel visioned really hard on making Claude good at tool use, and the terminal agents tend to, or like they need to use like a lot of tools over and over and over. Um, so the Claude's still kind of the winner, and I think that like they probably have the most people on it. I expect open source should probably catch up shortly because all we need to do is um like collect Claude code traces, put it into open code, train a couple of OSS models on it, and then we can do it for cheap. And it's like it's needed for open source right now because if you use Claude, I don't know if you looked at your Anthropic bill yet, but it's going to be gigantic unless you're on Max. Uh, so
Well, yeah, I tried that. I tried the free. That one you quickly run out of credits or whatever it's called. So then I upgraded to the Pro, which is only $20 a month. That's very reasonable. Um, but the next step I think was $200 a month, and I wasn't quite ready for that step. So I tried the
yeah, so
API.
they have
Go ahead.
well, yes, so the API will kill you. Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, who's saying that? Dave was saying, yeah, that $100 you can also do for Cloud Code, which would probably be fine. That's 5x the Pro. But yeah, with the
Mhm.
Pro, you do some stuff, and there's a you've exceeded your limit. I'll wake you, I'll let you start again in 5 hours, type of
Mhm.
thing, which is really frustrating. You can't just drop in a few more coins and keep going.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, then when I did the API version, I was up, it was $3.50 after 90 minutes. So that was going to be, yeah.
Well, yeah, and so that's just one the thing that I like about the terminal agents, or and yeah, I think Claude just does this built in now, is you can yeah, but we like started exploring it with like Tmux. So you would just like spin up like 10 terminals and run 10 Claude codes all at the same time. And then that will really kill you, but it's also very cool. So yeah.
Why would you want to do that, Warren?
Um, be so that your like your coding agent can deploy sub coding agents, so it can assign tasks to other agents. And
Oh.
it can work on it in parallel.
But you have to pay for each one of those guys as if they were.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
that's the big
got it.
kind of issue, but and that's why we need the open source version. But it is extremely powerful. I would highly recommend looking into it if you haven't yet.
So like you have a top level guy that says, here's the project, here's the task we need to do to get this particular project done. And you 10 agents go and you each get a piece, start working on
Yep.
it.
Or it's like, hey, like you look at this file, you look at that file, you look at that file, and then I'm gonna say like what needs to happen, and then you guys all make these changes, and then there's gonna be one guy running tests over on the side the whole time to make sure everybody's kind of behaving. Like you can do weird stuff like that.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm still not seeing this visually. Oh, Dev, I'm sorry.
no worry. So let's assume that you're building a multi-service system, right? And you
Hmm.
ask each of the cloud instances to build its service. They know what they have to build, what is the API that they provide for the service, and they're doing it. Then there is a tester, there's an orchestrator, and all those running separately. Each cloud instance is taking care of that. And then when they start using it, it's also polling, or you may have some mechanism to, uh, ask it to, well, if this happens, if a file like this happens, check it. I don't know if it can poll or not, but uh, it will uh, get run into an issue, will fix it. So essentially, our whole system is getting built in parallel by these by these robot software engineers, if you may.
Yep.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, but the thing is, this open source, Warren, I'm not 100% sure if that's the uh, if it reduces the cost, because open source still has to run on GPUs, and the biggest cost of inference is GPU, assuming the development cost is, uh, you know, for the biggest cost is
But
GPU.
Dave,
Let's put it this way.
could you imagine smaller models that are very coding specific?
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm heading with it, or like, and mostly because I think, and like Anthropic kind of having the kind of I don't know, like the privileged position in the market is like not everybody's trying to compete, but nobody is really competing yet. So like I think something that you could run like on a fairly small set of cards, like a cloud machine that you can just because the big thing is like you can uh, uh, if I'm not serving it at scale, I can just parallelize my own. And there is there's some debate in the Claude Code community if they start serving us a quantized model during the afternoons and then give us the normal one back at night, because it
I've
seems
noticed some of
really
that.
dumb. But yeah, like the fact that you can spin up your own threads and then you can like RL on your own like code base and traces and stuff, I think is kind of the clincher there, in my opinion at least.
So that is true what you're saying, Roger and Warren, in terms of smaller models, and that's what S1 and all these other highly super specialized models did for coding. Uh, as coding evolves and as these models evolve, still, a 3 billion model with a lot. See, one of the big things that you want to also achieve is a large context. When your code size grows, you want to be able to accommodate large context. And Claude does it by summarizing the previous context, putting it in memory, and then working with the newer context. So there is some loss of fidelity, assuming your summarization is able to, it's not lossless. Uh, but on the other hand, Gemini, as Warren said, it has 1 million token context, but it is nowhere close to Cloud, even with the free version. I mean, they're giving it for free right now.
Yeah.
CLI. So that's number 2. Number 3 is you want big context. So even deploying a 7 billion model requires you to have 2 RTX 4090, even and a quantized model if you want a large context. So I do hear you, Warren. I mean, if you want to keep your system busy the whole time and you can batch it and have multiple people running it, the cost will be lower with the smaller models. But there is a cost nonetheless of running a cloud service. And it will be, instead of, let's say, by the way, $200 for Anthropic compared to their API cost is highly subsidized. So currently when they offer 20x usage with $200, if you were to use API, it will come to around $1,000 a month.
Yeah, I think mostly the thing for, because like I'm in like a couple of like group chats that are like interested in, like how far can we push these things sort of experiments. And the thought being like not being able to have your hands on the model is like I had a thought a while back where it was like, okay, if R1, most recent R1 is beating Opus on a couple of benchmarks, and then we have like Entropic sampler and we have multi-decode, and then we can run like we can collect traces and do like overnight LoRa's and stuff like that. I think you could probably, especially if you're just serving it to your own engineering team. I feel like you could get something comparable, and then you could get you could continue to iterate on it is my thought. At least I don't think at least for like for large scale software engineering tasks, I don't think an out of the box solution works, right? Like you kind of got to bring it in house if you want it to really be ripping.
And what do you mean by that, Warren? Is it in order to learn your code base?
Well, let's say I want to have like up to 100 fairly competent tool using agents with like some multi-agent debate system of reasoners that can look at like my product requirements document or whatever. If I want to do something like that, it's not going to be like currently I can do it with Claude Code, but if I could do it with my own models, with my own traces, with all of my internal data, with all of my like engineering specs and everything, like I can give Claude Code my specs and sort of like hope it follows them, but I can RL my own guys to like always do it kind of thing.
Yeah, and then of course, there's another challenge that next day you come in, you start working, and you have to start from scratch again because they forget everything in the new session. You have to read and build up that KV cache content. Maybe you can. So I think that's another thing, right? For code, can you have the KV cache so that you don't have to reread every time? I don't know how they do it. Like I think Cursor does that. So Cursor is ID based. It's not CLI based, terminal based, like how Cloud Code and Gemini CLI are. So in IDE, they index the code, so you do not have to start from scratch every time. And B, in some ways, it's a faster ramp up at the start of the day. Or if you run out of context, it has some place to go to retrieve more information. Anyhow, I mean,
Dave, are you just saying you're just thinking of pre-filling the KV cache with your context from your code base or whatever?
Right. But if it becomes too big, then of course, you cannot do anything with it. It has to spill. So what Cursor does is it has a RAG index or something for your code base. So you do not have to, like, you can, if you run out of context window, then it is able to access it from the RAG and do something with it rather than not do just forget everything about the previous,
Yeah.
before
Well,
the
yeah,
start of the window.
I
Yeah.
don't I don't know, is KV cache to disk? I'm not sure that makes sense. Does it? It
No,
does.
no, it's not the KV cache, it's RAG. So that's why I changed it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. But
But I
for
guess
KV cache,
Anthropic has they have prompt caching at least. So if you're running a lot of that, then I know they use some of it on Claude Code requests.
But is that prompt caching to disk or just prompt caching in the
They're doing
CPU?
something on the back end. I don't think they're like,
Yeah,
considering the KB cache or anything, but
you know, I
it's
think that the problem is when once you get to KV cache, you're increased by about a half million or something like that. Each token is a half million, half a megabyte. So storing that on disk, I would bet you could generate it faster than you could store it and read it from disk.
mm, yeah, yeah. Uh,
Close anyhow. Maybe not faster, but close.
yeah, but that brings up, the one way that you can also use this multi-agentic development is you always have an agent who has an eye on the code and it's always continuously refining the design so
yep.
that other agents who are working against this API can ask the agents, hey, I'm implementing this. Will I be able to use it? Like, you can have a framework where each of these agents are building your whole system,
Mhm.
uh, and uh, and they are interacting with each other to ensure that they are aligned in the development because they individually may not have enough memory or context to work with, but when they distribute it that way, each one is a specialized agent for the work they are supposed to do, and they ensure that the others are aligned with them.
Yeah, I'd
Is
say
there
that's
some sort of
that's the thing.
synchronization then, or checkpointing or something to keep these guys all lined up? Or
Yep.
I haven't used it myself, but yeah, Warren, go ahead.
Yeah, well, so there's a essentially at least from my estimation, the core of the problem is that for a given task when one might need to perform in the code base, the context window is not configured correctly for the model to be able to accomplish that task. So that's the like very high level, like this is the actual problem. So my thought, or the way I've been approaching it from there, is to say like, okay, what I'm gonna actually need. So I not now I need to engineer software, and so I need to have good software engineering agents, but I also need to engineer context windows. So I'm the one of the like approaches that I've seen that I think is I think actually Richard has a version that he's working on that does this, is where you like for each agent, its context window is managed by like a series of sequential like finite state machines, and then you sort of have markers in your code base of like when you are working in this directory, you're going to reconfigure your context window such that like it has the last 3 tasks you tried to accomplish, it has these files from these lines, and then if you need to reconfigure again, or like if you repeatedly submit like things that are failing tests or whatever condition you can set up, then like you need to go back to the context orchestrator agent who is going to like try to reconfigure you and then send you back out, basically. It's kind of the
And
general.
and this is a language model that's doing this kind of context planning, is it?
Um sort of. Some of it's code, or like, so I know like um uh uh at least for me, I use like a sort of variety of utilities. I have like one called multi-claude, and what that will do is sort of like you can assign, you assign a UUID to a given agent, and then like it's going to come with a prompt, and then you can sort of like monitor the context window. Um, but it's sort of like some combination of like Python slash like normal code to sort of like organize the orchestration, and then like some sort of observational agents kind of deal is sort of how I'm thinking about it.
Interesting.
Hmm.
So I had two questions. One, is this an interesting topic to the group? And two, um, if so, would you be interested in Warren in having in doing some sort of low overhead host, co-host, whatever for covering?
Possibly, yeah. I think because I have there's a few projects that or like people I might be able to find somebody who like wants to kind of show it off. I know there's one
That'd be
guy, I
cool.
don't know what his schedule is like. But at the very least I can probably it would probably behoove me to go over my own workflow anyway, because I'm still sort of like iterating on it a little bit. So yeah, I'd be open to it.
Yeah, just
Cool.
just kind of a product overview and
I
um,
just I just like to understand kind of the principles, I guess, of what we're doing.
yeah,
Maybe take a
yeah,
step
yeah,
back from that and then move forward, which should be low overhead, I think, on, Warren or whoever was doing its part, because they probably are two
I'll
steps
do it.
ahead already, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, actually, one of the latest crackpot startup idea is like let's sell consulting on Claude Code and Cursor to enterprise teams who are kind of like not using them yet, basically.
Yeah,
Yep,
that's
yep,
that
yep,
that sounds like a pretty good deal, actually, because everybody's trying to get into this.
yeah,
People are throwing buckets of money at it, so that
Exactly.
may be a nice market.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Perhaps short-lived, but a good opportunity. Yeah,
Right. Might as well get it while it's here, you know?
yeah, exactly.
Well,
Is there
that's
anybody
how
else? Anybody
that's
else
how
listening in? Sorry.
yeah, that's how consulting companies get a niche, known to have a niche, and they're the guy. They become the guy that you go to talk to them, and that can be a very lucrative gig.
I mean, I think with all this is that ultimately we want AI to do as much on its own and the least amount of effort for us. So if we have like these new models coming out, super intelligence, then use multiple different types of super intelligent models. But I don't really know if I see these like custom agentic workflows going far, just because like I put into the chat, it shows O3 catching up to a Microsoft agentic
Hmm.
workflow. And there's many things that go on behind the scenes in order to do something for you that you're just typing in text for. So I think, going back to Jensen Wong's comments and saying like, focus on a niche and area, but there's really not going to be a huge need for, the coding as much. I think this is kind of like a craze right now, but I think it'll die down. And like I said, these single models, I just did a 100,000 patient clinical trial using ChatGPT o3 Pro, deep research.
Mm,
And these take like 30, 40 minutes. And I found it was reproducible 3 times, a
Hmm.
bunch of different ways. So I should be able to publish on that. But that's just like an example of like letting the AI do all the heavy lifting. And yes, it's hard to design prompts and optimize them on that kind of stuff. But I think going back to even before coding got big, like people would ask themselves, like, well, how do we do this? Well, we're going to have to code. Well, what if we don't have to code and we just tell AI we want it to do? And like it just goes off and does like 2 days worth of tasks that, we couldn't have done in 3 months kind of thing.
hmm
So it'll be interesting to see where all this winds up as far as Cloud Code. I use Opus 4 to generate Python visualizations. So and it by far is the best out of anybody, whether I try to do pings or any other model. So that's advantageous to me right now, but I think in the long term it'll be something more like, okay, you really have to know what the exact benefits of the AI models and let the AI do the heavy lifting.
So,
Yeah.
question for you, sorry, Kevin. Uh, so when you did, so I have two questions, if I may. I know someone else was also speaking. Okay,
Go
I'll
for
go.
it. Go for it, Jeff.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So one is this patient trial workflow that you developed. I'm assuming that in the end, after 2 days, it produced some code which was able to facilitate this trial for you for 100,000 patients. Is that what you're referring to in this case?
No, it's a direct output. So I get a log file, so each row is a patient and it's got like to 11 or 12 columns to it. And then so I've been spending countless hours trying to compare the log file to the output. And then I'll do multiple trials, compare trial to trial. And so far, I mean, I'm basically almost done with reproducibility and it's pretty rock solid across the board. So this is knocking down the door that you can't do deterministic operations with LLMs.
Yeah,
And
sorry, can I interject if you don't mind?
go
Uh,
ahead.
yeah, just one question. So essentially, what it did for you was data analysis without having to write any analyzer.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
Yes. So I think so for data analysis, whatever it does behind the scenes, whether it writes Python codes or whatever, so it has definitely gotten very good in the last few months. So you just dump your data, and it will, if you have resources, and like in this case for O3 Pro, which is so slow by the way, but nonetheless, despite the slowness, it was able to get for you what you needed. So that is definitely one of its strongest points. But when it comes to the niche projects and work, I mean, I always wonder, like, how much can open domain understand the nuances of the tasks that people perform in a day-to-day life and be able to automate that uh, for like maybe one small workflow can be done, but if it's some very complex but nuanced task, I would imagine that open domain knowledge may be limited to scale it to very niche workflows.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say OpenAI is definitely a bunch of niche workflows because if you're talking like reports, I've done proposals, I've done meta-analyses, I've done this clinical trial, and all the other ones tend to be like, I don't know if it's just like benchmarks, like the Grok is now like what, 44% on HLE. So I think it's more about real world data and doing a bunch of things that people want to go far with. And that's how I found with OpenAI to be like the only one for this task. And other ones have other advantages too, but once it all goes more towards real world applications, and again, the OpenAI has been around the longest, and number two is Anthropic. Gemini it does exceed some of these tasks that I'm using versus OpenAI, but for like a specific like a 10,000 word meta analysis, I couldn't get anywhere close with that with like Grok or Gemini. So I think that's the end goal with AI is to replace human workflows, across all these different fields. And I'm seeing that. Like I said, this is my fourth big, transition into something bigger like this. And that's the end goal, and to worry less about the complexities and that kind of stuff and just let the AI do the heavy lifting, find a way to validate it, and then, kind of adjust everything to that workflow.
Probably. I mean, I do find challenges when the data representation and the details of understanding of a lot of concepts becomes very uh, uh, well, subjective is one part, but even like to give you an example, uh, this medical diagnosis. I saw the link that you posted from Microsoft. So basically, they pitted the big open domain models against each other and got the good results. Is that what they did? Right? The
No,
title.
I read it like the single models are catching up to the agentic workflow. So that one, the agentic workflow seemed like steadily increasing, and then the single models at the O3 look like it over time, by medical dollars, I think, which is a similar approximation to time in this case. It was getting closer to the agentic workflows.
I see. I see. Okay. Maybe then go on in the meeting. Maybe you're right. Yeah. Sorry, my son is here. I have to. I'll go in the listen and mode. Sorry to drop off suddenly, Kevin.
I
Yeah.
so sorry about that message to all. I'm not quite sure how to do a DM anymore.
Oh, did they change it? The interface?
I
This
mean, I
app,
used to be able to select right there who I'm talking to, and
yeah, the ad thing isn't working anymore or whatever it
did it change for
was.
you?
But I haven't DM'd anybody in weeks, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, in the meeting is, yeah. Oh,
Huh?
I just tried to
okay.
send you a DM. Did you get it?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, now I found it. They moved
Hey,
it up to the top there. Okay. All right,
where's
thanks.
it at?
It's
That's a
up to the
DM. You're not
top. I
supposed
don't
to
know how
see
to initiate a new one. How do you start a new DM?
New
How
chat.
did I do
It's a
it?
new chat. In new
Yeah,
chat,
Oh,
just
the new chat. Okay, I see the new chat in the upper left then.
yeah. If you just click on somebody's name, like if you click on Warren in the chat, it'll start one to me.
Oh, well, that's even cooler.
Mm-mm. But yeah, at least to land the plane on the Claude Code thing, I think
Gotcha.
for me,
Hmm.
it's like it is a coding assistant, but the like if it can competently do multi-agent orchestration of software engineering, then presumably it could do so of containerized software. Presumably, then since Claude Code can also use MCP servers, it can just be an interface for like a very strong sort of uh, agent with a lot of relevant tools for working with uh, various kinds of data, and then like just have it write its own tools or code if it can't help you with the thing until it can help you with the thing. It's at least how I'm sort of approaching it.
It kind of feels like Warren, you're taking this to like a whole new level. Maybe you and Dave both are taking it to a whole new level. For me, just going from like Copilot, which was like, it
Oh
made me
yeah.
more productive in the development environment, right? So it was good, but I was still coding and it was helping me. With Claude being the command line interface, which I thought was completely backwards, pretty lame to start with, and then realized that, wait a minute, English is now my programming language.
Mhm.
I had my nephew was here, and I was letting him use Claude, and he wrote like a JavaScript 1,500 line JavaScript program, and he has no clue how to program.
Yep.
So it's like it opens things up to people that wouldn't have been able to do anything. You focus more on the functionality instead on the code. And even when I was using it, I found like there's some things it works well at, some things it doesn't work well at, but the things that work well at kind of enable you to do things you wouldn't even consider doing. I added
Hmm.
graphing. It was like it was 1 minute to say this is what I'd like to do, and 2 minutes later I run the code it generated, and it was exactly what I wanted. And it's not a feature that would have ever showed up on a PRD because what wouldn't have been worth the investment in time, but it's because of this it was
Hmm.
useful because it only took
So,
a
yeah,
couple minutes to do.
Roger, you are my ideal customer profile for the consulting services I want to sell. Because
Okay, I
just
think
getting
I've just been stumped,
past
but okay.
Copilot. He's just getting past Copilot. Has a large engineering background, and then it's like, okay, I think Claude Code can do something, but I'm not quite sure what it is. And then yes, I have a giant box of toys for you to play with that will
Yeah,
do all sorts of weird stuff. Um,
I'd love to hear where you're taking it to.
yeah, well, that and the yeah, so the it's
I think we
basically
all would love to hear it, Warren.
well, ideally, I want just software to just magically appear in front of me all the time. That's the end goal. But
Well, I think we all want that to happen, though, right? We don't want
exactly.
to have to, and we don't want to get bogged down in, oh God, what is that feature in Python that does that thing that I, and
Hmm.
why
Oh,
am I
that's
coding
the
it even, why am I even coding at that level,
Well, so
yeah.
exactly. There's deterministic execution and there's non-deterministic execution. And up until 2 years ago,
I
we
feel
couldn't do
like
non-deterministic. Yeah.
I feel like a human knowing that is still kind of valuable sometimes
Oh
because
yeah.
AI is like gonna have all this cruft, layers upon layers of stuff, and it really like it works or doesn't work based on the actual code and the binary bits. Um,
yeah.
may- I
Well, it
just feel
works
like
or doesn't work based on its context window. And you can poison that very easily.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess the way I would like to, I'm feeling like I'm, way behind you guys, and I'm trying to figure out how I get caught up on this stuff,
Boy, do I have some consulting to sell you, Jerry.
yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got them.
We got a live one on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the model performance is so high these days that they have quirks. So like if I got far into like a Gemini 2.5 Pro, it
Hmm.
reduces the outputs for the after the first generation. And then if I ask for something to go in, it'll take something out in order for it to fit. And then so I'll just start a new generation. And O3 Pro does not like being it doesn't like trivial tasks. So it'll just spend the whole clock doing nothing for like 15 minutes and then it
Well,
return
it'll be
back
billing you,
at that
won't
clock.
it?
What was that?
It'll be billing you, so that's not doing nothing from their
Well, this is
standpoint.
chat. Yeah,
Oh,
this is
okay.
chat. So I got
Yeah.
all day. But yeah, they all have their own quirks. And
Yeah.
Opus 4, for me, I get rate limited every 3 or 4 generations at $20 a month. And I just started testing Grok 4. It just tends to be very overly verbose, like trying to
Mhm.
prove it's the best model kind of thing. So yeah, you kind of have to learn over time, like, okay, this messed up and it wasn't the model, it's some quirk that it doesn't like that you're doing.
Well, so yeah, that's the sort of, I guess,
Hmm.
sort of core thesis in my experience is that like if the model can't do it, it's a skill issue. The model can do it. You just have to set it up correctly. Is my I'm relatively high conviction on at this point. Like they're all smarter than me, so I just like as long as I know how to offload it to a model, I will because it's smarter than me.
Yeah, and I would say something like if you're just getting started, the ChatGPT o3 is right in the middle, like
Yeah,
really good
O3 is great.
performance,
It's my
and you could
workhorse.
do
Yeah.
something that's simple and it won't like take forever or give you a bad answer.
Mhm. Yeah, the RL paradigm, I think, really sort of clinched it, really. Is like now that we can spend compute on both ends, you just kind of have to like dial it in on the right side. And it sounds like Elon has gone a little too hard on the inference in order to beat those benchmarks. So now it's just gonna like yap endlessly. But that's because we haven't figured out how to do actual efficient chains of thought. We only know that add more length equals more good. Um, so
More good.
yeah, like I, all the way these things work is just really dumb all the time, and I love it. It's
Well,
pretty.
my take with that is he says they start, well, next token prediction, and then they get into like pre-training, and then they get into, gosh, it's unsupervised, supervised, and now I see reinforcement learning for many, many things like deep research type features, more RL,
Mm,
and less on the pre-train. So
Hmm.
he was saying 10x from Grok 2 to Grok 4 as far as compute,
mm.
and you know, it doesn't sound like all these are being retrained all the time like it used to be.
Um, well, I would presume that. Well, yes. Well, if it's RL, then you are gonna want to you're gonna want to do it. Well, I don't know if it would technically be online or offline, but like obviously, like your users are just handing you data, so there's no reason not to train your agent to be more effective at the required sequence of tokens it's going to need to generate in order to be able to most effectively perform the workflows that you want. The issue I think largely is just that X and all the big companies like they have the advantage of economies of scale, so they can run a really large, really powerful model. But the problem is they have to make that model effective for everybody. Whereas I think you can like leverage, a cluster that is not going to like entirely break the bank with like maybe, and then occasionally supplement with like some Grok 4 or some Opus or whatever. But I think my thought being is that like engineering teams will probably get there first, but I would advocate that every team should probably have like a little cluster that's sort of that it is all the team's traces are all always going into the data pool for the trust cluster. We go home for the night, we do a little bit of RL, we throw on a new LoRa, and then we come back tomorrow and they're a little better, and you just keep, the flywheeling from there is the thought.
Yeah, I mean, Dev put in a good point there. So, does anybody know why O3 Pro is so slow? It depends on the task. Like, I have evidence going back to 4.0, and I would give something that would just take like 2 seconds for like a collab to process a script and give me an output, and it was taking a minute. So, I think they hold answers. I really do. I think they hold the output. Somebody asked O3 Pro how many R's are in Strawberry, and it took 14 minutes. So there's really no reason for that because there's not much data. Now, on the pro side of this, and who's this? Warren was talking about scaling. I found a way that I could use these log files that it generated for me. And it's for whatever reason, it doesn't obey to the context limits. So a 5 or 8 megabit log file that shows up as like 45 million tokens in Google and Gemini, I can process in ChatGPT. So there's a shortcut with that because it doesn't have all
Because they're
the context.
truncating your window and not telling you.
Yeah, it doesn't have all like the context, issues that a full document does. And anyways, I asked it to show the answers. I showed the examples of where you're pulling it from the log file, and it did it multiple times. And I go back to the log file, I check, and I say, okay, it's in there. But there's little quirks like that that can go in your favor. You just have to, keep trying different or keep working through different projects.
That's the clue too, actually. That's kind of how you know that O3 is to some degree a multi-agent system on the back end, because when you gave it the log file, it dropped it out of context, and until you asked like a query, then it generated some amount of keywords that should show up near your query in that document, and then it grepped through the document to find those, and then it pulled that into its context window. Is my
Yeah, it's
That's
far
all.
beyond just next token prediction. And it actually, when I put the log files back in, it uploads it, and I can scroll through to like 100,000 rows. And this is something that I have never seen with textual documents because there's a lot more in reading long forms of text. That yeah, it's some different type of processing. It's treating for log files or basically just data as opposed to like complex words.
Yeah, I've had that too. I remember asking it to like print out exactly what I just gave it, and it was like it was a summarized like little couple of lines of it, and I was like, "Oh, I see what you're doing, Sam." Yeah, it's kind of a lot of weird little things, and especially if you're using the front end. But even now, like because like I know if I'm hitting the Grok 4 API or whatever, like I know it's calling like I'm not just getting language model output. Like they're basically doing another ChatGPT like in front of the API for some of that stuff. Is what it feels like at least.
Yeah, and again, I don't think it's just probabilistic or deterministic model. I think there's a lot of deterministic things that all of these do, like the top, 5 manufacturers. And it's just the amount, I don't know if 70% language, 30% language, all other different types of processing and that it can do with different types of data. I don't know. But I did reach a maximum in asking for, say, 24 updates instead of one. And it was throwing all the numbers off and it wasn't reproducible. And this is like a big project. So we know nothing about the proprietary models, but I think because I've dealt with so much with data, I think it's pretty safe to say that it is competent in dealing with large amounts of data, but there is a limit if you were to think about overall complexity and certain types of tasks that you're doing with numbers.
Oh yeah, I guess when I the deterministic, non-deterministic, and like sort of secondarily structured, unstructured is not a that that's more that is about data in general, like the possible data that the possible kinds of data that could exist in reality. Either it has a structure or it doesn't. It can't, there's not a third thing is the point. And previously we could only we only had code, and code executes deterministically, and we can kind of we can do procedural generation or whatever, but end of the day, you have like a generator of deterministic execution of some kind until 2 years ago. Because now we have non-deterministic generation and execution. So if you combine those two things together, there isn't a third thing. So my thought being like, okay, like once data transformations can be automated to a sufficient level, then the types of data that exist can be transformed in the correct way. It's just like it just becomes a search problem from there. Is sort of, I guess, like the somewhat like Blade Runner-y kind of thought there. But yeah, it's not like, oh, like models are bad at whatever. I don't think, like I said, I think they're smarter than me at this point. So I don't know. Ask Grok if he's bad at anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue is like the number of different complex tasks that you're asking it to do. And by far, Gemini 2.5 Pro has been best for this. I had a big data set. It was 400,000 words, or about like 750 K tokens. And then I had another table that was based on that. And I wanted to check the table based on the data set, return a new data set, search the web, and return back the URL of where it found from the original literature, and it was too much for it. It'll do the table, but the accuracy on the links is not high. So that's an example of super intelligence. You've heard all this meta stuff, and they're throwing huge numbers out to get these people, because I think that's what we're looking at is like, that was an example of, say, 4 big tasks that none of the other manufacturers could really do. Most can only do like 2 or 3 big tasks, like huge chunks of data, and then synthesize and create this new output. So I think that's where everything's going. Just have plans, as far as what all you want done, and then these kind of like more routine things that I'm doing right now. The AI will take more and more of the burden.
Yeah,
Is that a good break point, perhaps, to bring it back to? I don't know if we're still going to have.
We have like this was, I guess, the impromptu yap session, but yeah,
yeah. That's cool.
Absolutely.
I don't know if Ted still wanted to do a on the spot presentation.
I don't think we have time.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
My bad.
No,
Not at all.
It's interesting. It went on because it's interesting. So.
Yeah, well, me personally, I'm feeling like I'm just falling behind. So you guys are helping me get caught up. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like that too. I'm like, even though I know, or like, and I'll interact with other people or other teams, and I'll be like, oh, like you don't know about this thing.
Yeah.
It was so weird. Like, my last main gig, they were like, "What's deep research?" And I was like, "How do you live?" Like,
wait, you're an AI company, and you're wondering to ask me that question, right?
Exactly.
That should have been a red flag right there.
Well, it was. That's why I'm not working with them anymore. But the some of the like core loops are just they're like it's basically like give it a direct, like there's somewhat like one liner where it's like wow prompt MD like do Claude, and like that's all it is. You just let it go. And you can act like, if you have the right scaffolds in place, you can eventually like have, you might chew through, hundreds of millions of tokens, but eventually it'll land in the right spot if your tests are good enough. I know there's at least
I found that the same kind of thing is like, it doesn't matter like how long the prompt is, could be 2 pages if it's super detailed. But if you're asking for too complex of a solution, that'll be the issue. And actually, one of the ways you could see on deep research, if you have a really good defined prompt, you go to submit it, and then it asks you a question like, do you need this, 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 and this? And it's just basically repeating what's already in the prompt. And it's like 2 or 3 sentences. That means that it's a good prompt. And then if it asks you like 4 or 5 things, it's either a small task or it's not well defined. But yeah, load up the prompts as much as you can, as long as they make sense. And the overall task, like the multiple things that you're doing, isn't too high.
Interesting. I've sort of found the opposite, where it's like I don't want me prompting the models. I'm like a meat human. Like I'm just gonna let the models prompt the models. Is at least the point I've gotten to.
Well,
So
shouldn't it? I feel like it also should be that the model should be prompting the human. Like it needs to decide when it needs more detail and ask you for it.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
that
sometimes. I mean,
The,
it's
a prompt
repetitive too.
the prompt should be interactive or
well, yeah, I think it's a matter of taste, right? Like that's sort of the function the human can perform now. So the thing like they're so I think they said it in the Claude Code presentation. They were like they're kind of slot machines. So they will just sort of like randomly and like yeah, I have 500 slot machines working on my software engineering repo, and like everybody is panicking about it. But the idea is like okay, the humans are there to do tastes, so like we can decide if this is the actual good thing or like hey like actually I think you should rewrite these tests or like don't rewrite the tests. So like the rule we're going to put in is do not touch the tests folder unless you are writing more tests. Don't edit the tests so they work. But then we as humans, like our job is to go in there after several TDD loops or whatever, and then like reevaluate because we have we're more grounded, I guess. But they'll just keep doing stuff, which is kind of where I've landed on, where it's like I the analogy I made the other day was like it's not software engineering anymore so much as it is software farming. If you have the right, if you are not compute constrained, you can just throw more tokens at it, and as long as you can like cut the garbage parts out, like it'll just grow stuff. Um, and it's which is I don't know, it's a pretty wild position to be in, but
Yeah, I mean, the center for most of my workflows is generating tables. And if you just do how they like put like column, like, pipe in between each column, I never get the same tables, especially if I'm doing like reproducibility, it doesn't work. So I explicitly say you have to define each R1, R2, C1, C2. And then, so if I do this generation like 3 or 5 times or whatever, then my output will be consistent. And so there's certain things like that. Like you have to think like I found more than code or especially images, always get things into tables to go into the next steps, because then that's like a universal format. And if there's some issues with code or whatever, like the tables seem to be the way to go.
Kevin, what do you mean by tables? Are you talking actually like a grid of data or?
Yeah, like a 6 by 6 or,
Yeah.
C1 through C6, R1, R6.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, if you're thinking like how we have to do things today with we don't have super intelligence, is like you have to think like, okay, what am I going to do the step after this? And is it going to be consistent if I'm trying to do something else like reproducibility or any other thing that you're trying to prove in data science? So there are some things where it always works better if you're super precise. And you just cannot, like, if you need the tables to be the same every generation, that's the only way that I found that works.
Got it.
Like if it tries to do a loop or something like that, or just define the columns and say what the rows are, instead of like explicitly saying what each, row is.
Mhm.
but
So,
which is interesting. So like the way I'm approaching that problem is I'm gonna look all around the problem where it's like, okay, if the thing I need to do today and possibly might need to do again in the future is have tables and rows assigned correctly, I don't want to build the table today. What I want to build today is the scaffolding that is going to let me just like generate those tables consistently every time. So the same way I approach code, like okay, like I may need I may need like a database with some kind of scaffolding. Well, what I should figure out is like what models in what sequence, and then should prompt them and let them do it, and then I should save the conversation and store that somewhere. Kind of deal. It's like don't build stuff, build the thing that builds the thing. Is my
So Warren, in terms of presentation, do you think do we need to do a step in between So you're doing a lot of this kind of multi-layer, multi-agent uh, code development type of environment.
I was seeing how far I can
follow it.
basically. Yeah.
I'm wondering if we need a step in between, if there's other folks that also are kind of this is new exposure to them, and like what does it mean to be developing products with a Claude Code type of tool?
Well, yeah, I think that is a good, well, yeah, and there are probably some stuff to get there because it's like, if I'm not, my perspective is kind of weird because like I don't, the only kind of coding I've ever learned how to do is agent driven. So like I spent more time in Cursor than I did VS Code, and like ChatGPT came out when I was first doing my boot camp. So I always have agents and I'm used to it. But I can imagine, and I've seen that the workflow for folks is very different. So yeah, there's probably some amount of stuff to look through. And then also like this multi-agent thing is kind of a new, it's like the latest thing really, because it was like, okay, Cursor now has agents, which is cool, and it's got one agent, but now it's sort of like all of the autonomous coder things are like, okay, can we do like 10 at a time now? So it's pretty fresh just in terms of the competitive landscape as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm wondering, Julius is online. Are you active, Julius? Have you played with any of these tools?
Uh, like Claude Code.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm working at it right now. I've I've actually made the transition to 99 point something percent of my code being written, by Claude.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah, we've really gotten good at each other. So my workflow now is, I basically start brainstorming. I just try to set the setting and kind of talk to it about what's the state of the art, and that sort of stuff, and get it all kind of in the right headspace. And then I ask it to, write out a plan. So I want to write out an MD file, write out, convnextplan.md, and it just kind of crystallizes our discussion into a plan of action. Then I go edit that, and then I come back around and I make it go back through it and edit. I might even have Gemini look at it or O3, just really, if it's something really important, really hammer on it. And then come back around and then just say, okay. And then I always start a fresh session and I say, please read this plan file and start the implementation. I never try to tell it to finish because, you don't want it to feel like it's getting in a hurry. And I like when it sort of decides, well, okay, phase one is done. It seems to have a knowledge of when it's filling up its context buffer, which is really kind of amazing because once it gets down to the little warning thing, it kind of wants to wrap up. It'll sort of define its steps like any good intern at the end of
I
this.
think they are RLing for that actually, because so there's a, I think it's /summarize or /compress that you can use, and Claude can do, like, it can use that as well, and I think that they are like doing RL on it so that it knows when to do that.
Yeah, and I try to avoid that, right? So I want to, write out my own plan at the end in my own summary. I wanted to commit, and I wanted to, commit in a state of maximum luminous, understanding.
Yeah. So here's the trick. Before you go to the new context window, have it, or I use cursor rules for this. So I say like, based on your implementation, like we're done for the day. Write some new rules and guidelines and observations based on our work here. And then I'll flip it over to the next conversation and be like, hey, here's some new guidelines. Here's your new PRD. Here's your new task list. Like, go off. And then we just use that. Yeah.
Yeah. You just treat it like, someone with really poor long-term memory formation. And but, at the end of
That's me.
And you just spin them up. Yeah, it feels like me too. I mean, I really benefit from all this context refresh as well.
So,
Well,
yeah, it's what you're, compact. That's what it is. Thank you, Dev.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing. You're, or at least there's a way you can think about it where it's like you are manually configuring someone's short-term memory. You can also augment that with long-term memory, like by giving it memory MCP tools and stuff like that. But like what you are doing when you're managing a context window is like there is a robot, it has short-term memory. You have to engineer that now. Is the
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah, and I just like to make it very visible. It's like I want a visible compaction that I can check and edit. I can edit its memory for the next day if I want.
Yep.
Hey
So it's good.
guys, just a thought here. It seems like this is a topic that we might want to spend some time on, doing some little tutorial on. I mean, I'm catching about 20%, really, honestly, what you guys are putting out there. Okay, would maybe Warren, Julius, and things like that? Would you be willing to kind of do something like ad hoc at one point at one of these meetups?
I'm happy to chime in anytime.
Yeah.
But I should just mention I'm moving around the world. I'm almost in India time, so this is actually an early morning thing. My first cup of coffee was tuning in 15 minutes late. That was how late I got up.
Oh,
Where'd you
okay.
end up? Where'd you end up, Julius?
I'm basically on India time, but I'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Wait, are you on India time or are you in India?
I'm on India time in Palo Alto.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. So he's working out a contract that's based in India. I'm cool with
I've
that.
done that. Yeah.
Yeah. We've all done that one.
Yeah, I actually have collaborators in all these, in every sector of the world. So I kind of make the rounds, and so I'm in the India segment. Next up is the London segment, and so I'll be back in a couple of weeks. A third of the time I overlap with everyone. That's kind of how it works.
Your caffeine consumption must be way out there, my friend.
It's up there, yeah, because I'm always going to bed later and getting up later, and yeah, so it's the lifestyle of the teenager. Stay up too late and sleep in.
Julius, last time I checked, you're not a teenager, man.
Well, not on the outside for sure. No, sure. But
Cool.
yeah, Claude's been incredible, and I'm blown away by the Grok 4 benchmarks that I saw last night. I couldn't believe it. So I can't, and they're coming up with Grok code, and my God, and surely they'll have a CLI interface, like everybody else. Everybody's got a CLI interface. So I just really am going to have to try that. That's going to be amazing because honestly, I have to say, Claude 4 Sonnet is good enough. I mean, I feel like my workflow with it is that I don't need a smarter AI. I can do everything I want to do with that thing. That's it. That's enough. But I will try. I will try the most, advanced thing. I mean, I will say, we can get, up against the wall, but I feel like it's consistently better than me. It's really, really solid. And if I prompt it right and if I slow it down, get in the low enough gear with enough planning, I can do anything. And I can do it way faster than I could have done it. So I just feel like I'm in a groove where I'm set. I don't need anything new, but I will try it. And I'm amazed to see how much better it is on those, what was it, Humanity's Last Exam or something like that? That was just way head and shoulders above everyone. And I saw Claude, like halfway down. All the rest of the models were where we. So this is going to be amazing. And I like what Elon Musk said. We're in the intelligence big bang right now. That really resonated with me. That feels like what it is. I just feel like I'm in, I feel like I'm on the surfboard on this big wave and I'm going faster and faster, getting an amazing view. And we just have to stay on the surfboard, stay on that wave and
That's right. Don't fall. Don't fall.
Hey, Julius, while you're on the
collectively
Julius, while
wipe
you're on
out.
the-
But
Julius, while you're on the surfing thing, what about windsurf? Are you using that?
using what?
Windsurf, that's a good one.
I've subscribed to Wimsurf and Cursor. I only get into Cursor when I want to read a .md file. It's my best markdown previewer. And maybe I want a single step once in a while, if I feel like, if I want to check the code, but I'm going in small enough chunks that I don't even have to check the code anymore because I watch it go by, right? I watched it get written at high speed. So, and it's good, it's making good decisions and its Unix experience is better than mine. It pulls out all kinds of fancy tools and it'll go into Octal if it has to. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And so it's just
May I ask
everything.
one more question? Do you verify the code it writes? Because it tries Like I'll tell you, in a week, it wrote 15,000 lines of code for me, which worked. Multi-agent tech, multi-services, and it just worked. Like all I had to do was ask if an error happened on a use case that I wanted to try on, like just give it a log and it would figure out where to debug and all that. I mean, after a while, I was not even looking at the code it was writing.
It was like what?
I was not even looking at the code it was writing. I'm like,
Yeah.
you are
Just
too good to
testing.
do that, so
Yep.
I'm not going to monitor you anymore.
Yeah, it's gotten
That's
that
where we
good.
are. Yep.
And
There's definitely like large chunks of code bases that I have just never looked at, probably, or partially because like as agent driven developer, like if I were writing code with my fingers by myself, I would hate test driven development, because you know I don't want to write all the docs and all the edge case and blah blah blah. But as if an agent's writing the stuff, I love it because I will like the next set of features, I'm just going to have it generate a failing test suite. I'm going to make sure the tests are like as authentic as possible. And then I'm going to have it like fill in the code and we're just going to loop that until it's done.
yeah, in my Claude prompt, I have it say, any new feature needs to be tested, and so every little thing it does, it drops another unit test in the test directory. I'm in Python right now, which is another reason it's so good. It's just better at Python than any other
Yeah,
language.
Python and TypeScript.
Yeah, in C++, it's not as great, and I'm circling back to that. But only 2 months ago, it was not nearly this good. So I think they're continuously improving without even announcing. But I also do see this phenomenon of maybe a quantized model during the day or certain odd times, because sometimes it's like really strong and lickety split perfect, and then it just seems to struggle other times, and I'm not sure.
That's my issue, or that's why I need or like there are a couple of open source Claude codes in which you can use whatever model you want, but they're not quite as full featured as the big Claude code. But the issue that I have and why I want like ideally open source models, but at least models that are all RL effectively to use the same chassis is because like it's almost like guaranteed that they are serving a quantized model at certain times of day. Like they just can't handle the traffic. In fact, I think recently they said that they won't take any more Claude Max signups. I think they said they're over capacity.
Wow.
Oh, no.
In a year, we'll be able to run Grok 4 locally, right? Musk said he would open source all his models after 1 year.
Yeah, but
Well, we'll see.
what are the hardware requirements to run this thing?
That's the other.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to run this on my 486 out here. So
Well, I mean, then again, like now that Croc's out, like we're just going to start distilling it. Like there's going to be a 32B that's running off of like all of the reasoning. Of Grok 4.
like it'll just go the same path that every other model has gone, right? So.
Yep.
And code specific models should distill down really well because
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, you have a confined vocabulary and things like that on it. So
it's a much smaller subspace of the universe.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could get real crazy, and so as my thing that I like to do is like, okay, what's the next thing that we have to figure out? And I think the next thing we have to figure out, or like where I'm heading, like currently we're in multi-agent. If I think out like one step after multi-agent, I think what we need is, I think we have to go to math. Like, I think we have to have like mathematically proven code. I have a buddy who's sort of like working on this where you can compile Rust down into cock proof and then into lean. And if you can define all the properties and you go for like property testing and static analysis of your software, and you can just write everything in lean, and it's like this either adds up or it doesn't, then you can throw as many agents at it as you want, and then like you just run the equation. If it fails, like throw it away and do it again. And then like you do that until all of the properties that you need for your software are like properly fuzzed, and then you deploy it, and then you're done. But yeah, I think math is the next spot.
Hmm.
Yep. Provably correct software. Theorem proving will come back.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. And we have alpha proof too. That's the thing.
Yeah, yeah. AI can handle it.
Hmm. About to get real weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it still pays to know what to do, you know. So I think we'll still have a role because they don't really care about anything. So, you know, we're the ones who'll direct them.
Well, yeah, I think or for I don't know, have you has anybody read AI 2027?
No.
Familiar with that? Oh, yeah, go to AI. I think it's just AI-2027.com. 2027.com. Yeah, it is. This is like somebody's like, hey, like let's try to predict out how this is going to go in the most grounded way that we can. Like if it, let's assume that current trends continue. And like, okay, what happens? Like, how does this whole thing wrap up? And it's quite a fun read. And also terrifying. But the sort of moral of the story is like you could get like the super intelligence explosion like 2027-ish, and it could get real problematic by 28 or 29. Or it could go really, really good, depending on whether or not things continue as they just have been continuing so far.
What's going to be scary is the AI wars. You know, they're going to be bad guys pressing their AI driven weapons and cyber crime and so on. And we have to have an army of well-aligned, defensive, good AI, and they're just going to battle it out, and we're just going to be on the sidelines, you know, with
Yeah, they go over that in AI 2027. They have a good bit of that. I think it'll be.
Are you guys talking about Elon? No, just kidding.
I mean, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not to get too far into politics, but it seems, we're looking at the wrong kind of manufacturing when we want to bring some back home.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the thought, or yeah, the interesting part is like, okay, once we get agents that are, or like, we already have like dead internet theory, right? Where it's like, okay, like most of this content, even before LLMs, was probably AI generated. Like all of these YouTube comments aren't real. And like we still get algorithmically delivered content. So until we can have the magic content generation machine, we're just going to have like a bunch of agents staring at your algorithm and like injecting whatever needs to get injected to make you do, say, think the thing that is, that their directive is to make you do, say, think.
Mm-hmm. You know, one thing I think we'll see is, social media companies like Blue Sky or somebody adopting a digital signature-based system where you have to, you know, authenticate yourself as a human before you can post and just sort of wipe out all the bots. And that's an interesting, you know, it is still gameable, but you can, you know, accumulate reputation points, and you can also attach to people's certificates to prove that not only are you a human, but you or you know that you really did graduate from the college you say you graduated from, and that you really do work where you say you work. You know, you can use their certificates to
Mm.
authenticate yourself on a higher level, and you don't even need blockchain for that. Just plain digital signatures can do that. So it's really, I think that kind of thing that I'm looking forward to, because I don't want to be called by anybody or emailed by anybody, or I don't want to see any posts that aren't from a human. I don't want to hear any music
But
that's not from a human.
I think it's more, Julius, than just a human. You want to define kind of what's your trust network. Who do you want
Yes.
to hear from?
Yeah.
And people that you trust, you're more inclined to trust people that they trust. You know, there's some sort
Right.
of hierarchy. network.
I'll read the Associated Press. I'll read New York Times. There are news sources that I will admit in, but I don't want to hear anybody else once it gets really noisy. I mean, it's not that
Yeah.
noisy.
Well, yeah, I mean, if AI can authentically, like, have you guys used well, I don't know, we went over VO3, right? Like, what, why would, like, what is a newspaper if whatever content that I want can be researched and whatever words that I want can appear and whatever video that I want can just show up. Like the AP is going to be a very different thing in 5 years, or I would hope, or it's just not going to be. Would be the thoughts.
Mhm.
Digital signatures.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, as a also a crypto person, there's a lot of interesting and that's sort of Sam's thesis with WorldCoin too, is like, hey, like these agents can impersonate you, like that's why you need to give me your eyeballs. But yeah, there's a lot of like problematic sort of socially sort of human interfacey things. It's all going quite quickly, and it's like it's very weird to be in software at the moment. I don't know, because it's like
We're
you're closer than everybody else.
the rest of the world is like the cosmic ray background. They're just static. They're not moving.
It's wild. Like as somebody like I worked in Web3 and I thought that was fast, and now I'm like trying to keep up over here, and it's like, okay, there are 500 research papers that came out this week, and like 250 of them are like complete falsehoods, and then 100 are relevant, and then 4 of them have a like meaningful step forward, and then there's next week. And it's like,
Well,
you just can't keep up at this point, and it's like other people are like, oh yeah, like ChatGPT, I think I've heard of that. No, oh no,
yeah,
no.
yeah. I'm using Notebook LM for
I love Notebook LM. So
large
good.
quantities of PDFs, and giving me an overview. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Just try
I
to stay on the board.
one of the or like a thing that I do like pretty regularly now is I'll take so I'll run a deep research on all of the majors. So like Opus deep research, O3 Pro deep research, Gemini deep research, Perplexity deep research, all on like the same extremely niche topic. And then I'll hand all of that over to Manus and I'll be like, Manus, make me an interactive course with exercises about this topic.
Nice.
And so like it's just like all of a sudden there's now like a fairly coherent, just because that like that's 4 different multi-agent systems all like double checking each other. Deep research tends to not have too many hallucinations in it. And so if you throw all of them at the same sort of aggregate that is then going to like build you the course that helps you learn it the best.
Is there a
Because
clear
you know how
winner?
to change it.
Like, which one do you feel like is stronger and does the best job?
Uh, O3 Pro is, I think, just like one report. If all I got is one report and all I got is one query, I'm probably gonna send it to O3 Pro.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
like.
it's pretty good on the context of what's
Mm.
behind or like citations and like the extra stuff. Like, just think of it like the model's good, but the web part, sometimes it'll double cite, like it'll just like bubble,
Oh yeah,
click on
yeah. The
both.
citations are crap. Like,
Oh, the other thing is the underlining of the text. They call them, forget the name of these, but anyways, when you click on it, it underlines the text in purple. Those aren't, well, they're helpful, but they're never 100%. It's rarely 100% because it'll underline like some part of either over, under, that type of thing. But I just use it as like a tool to find where it's talking about. But yeah, I think on the context part, the actual report or whatever you're doing, meta-analyses or whatever, it's pretty strong. And I haven't found anything close on the other models.
I will say that Perplexity is not good at deep research, but or like the research report it gives you is not like super in depth like O3's, but it will get done in like 2 minutes, and it will actually have like 100, 200 sources that it'll have picked through. And so like I like if I need to know, I forget what like I'm trying to think of like a thing that I asked Perplexity recently. I think it was like, oh, what is this? Oh, let me go there.
I think Warren just went offline.
Yeah, no, the dinging.
He swapped out, you know.
That's right.
Yeah.
I would like to make a point here, though. We
Go.
have repeatedly talked about no matter what the paper is, you think you're not going to be able to fill the hour and a half with the paper, but we always stretch it out. But this is a new record. I don't think we've ever talked about nothing for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I beg to differ. I don't think it's talking about nothing. I mean, you know, it is
No
a
source material, let's say.
yeah, with no source material. Yes, just
All right.
because we're nerds and we like this stuff. You know, what can I tell you? Using the old term.
I think this topic in particular it's kind of one you really, it's hard, like if you see it, it's hard not to like jump down the rabbit hole because it's like, okay, like as a software engineer, what does that mean at this point?
Yeah. What is a software
drastically
engineer? Do they
changes
still
the-
exist?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to add a thing about the deep research too, is I've been using it. I mostly used it for ChatGPT 4.5, and it got better, you know, when it was O3 Pro. And you have to keep in mind too, with these models, especially the proprietary models, is they get better over the course of their life. So it's not like they're just dumped on the web. And there was a study, I'm trying to think of this guy's name on LinkedIn, Pete or something. And he did a benchmarking of ChatGPT 4.0 since it came out last May of 2024. And it's steadily improved in these benchmarks. So that's another thing to really focus in on the single models, because you might run one day and then the next day it's fixed, because there's so many people using it too. So it's not just the main model releases, they do fixes, you know, whatever would improve accuracies throughout the course of the model. And now 4.0 is over a year old. So yeah, that's why if I were to stress anything, it's to really focus in on the models, because that's where all the money's at, and that's where the bulk of the development's at. And you're best off just always implementing the newest model. And I would really advise against getting into too much complex stuff where you get far away from new model implementations.
Yeah, except one time when they released 4.0 and it was over sycophant and they had to retract.
I mean, personally, like I just did just took a course on agents, reinforcement learning, and MCP from one of the guys at Prime Intellect, and the I've been finding it to be fairly correct. He was like, actually, like a pretty solid model for if you're doing like a multi-agent system, or if you have like multiple complex workflows that you need the thing to get correct. Like DeepSeek Chat v3, like just their big one. Just because it can participate in RL, it's pretty quick and it's pretty smart. Like that's a pretty solid workhorse model for a lot of these core workflows. And it's, you know, it's not quite frontier anymore. But it's a very good, like kind of workhorsey, get the job done kind of thing. But that's for like if you are deploying your own stuff and trying to do training and whatnot, rather than just sort of using the front end products or whatever.
Yeah, I just mentioned in the chat that my prompt for O3 says emphasize references whenever possible. And I can see it when it's thinking that it's very determinative. In other words, it'll say to itself, I know this, but since the user likes references, I'll go ahead and do a lookup anyway. And so it just really adds a lot of citations to, you know.
Is that in your custom instructions? Is that in your custom instructions on the ChatGPT front end?
Yeah, it's in the settings, personalization.
Nice.
I guess it's for all of any chatbot I choose at OpenAI.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, have we talked this one out again?
I think we did it.
Or at least, no, I thought this was a really actually great session. No knock against you, Roger, but I thought this was a really good use of my personal time to just find out just how behind you guys I am, if nothing else, and I've got some work to do. So I appreciate it.
Just in case, Jerry, you didn't know, very soon there will be new browsers, all multi-agentic. Perplexity already released one called Comet.
Oh,
OpenAI
the browser.
has,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
I really
OpenAI
love it.
has announced that they are going to release one, and there are some other ones also from before DI and others.
So you're
So
saying, I'm sorry, you're talking browsers?
yeah, so when I, for example, today if I just to give an example, right? ChatGPT operator.
I'm not familiar with that. No.
Okay, so that came out 6 months ago with a $200 plan.
Oh,
It sucks big time, but it is there. Okay, I mean it's now on record, but yeah, it sucks big time.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's
well, yeah. That is a barrier, you know.
but going back to it, I'm still on the wait list for Comet unless I pay $200 Perplexity plan or something. But the multi-agentic world is basically the browser is taking your query and running agents in the backend and trying to execute as much of it as possible before it returns you the outcomes. So it's not just index search, it's not summarization of the information like how Google does in the top with the AI mode or something. It goes and tries to do as much of the actions that it can anticipate you'll do as part of that search, and then comes back with the outcomes. So, like you're doing the travel ticket reservation, instead of just returning that, it will say, well, and it may know about you. You're a family of so many people with kids in this range, and this is what it will cost you. And this, I know your preferences from before, so let me just do all of the work for you and get back to you.
And I know your credit card number, so let me just book that for you.
I actually just asked Dia to book me a flight, but it said it couldn't, so I probably gotta give it a skill or something.
Is DR for free or it costs something?
Yeah, you gotta get on the wait list for it, but it's free. Yeah.
What is it called, Warren?
It's called Dia. It's from. Did any of you guys hear about Arc browser? It's okay, yeah. There's a company called the Browser Company, and they used to make Arc, and now they make Dia.
Okay.
My search, my address bar is a chat bar that I can also add tabs or files or what have you, and then I can do skills or whatever, which are little automations and stuff.
Okay. So have we kind of talked this out for one session?
Good.
Yeah, or at least this chapter.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm going to stop the recording, and we should probably just make this available to everybody,